everybody. So today I am working from the How Not to Die cookbook, and we are making a golden quinoa tabouli salad. So I don't know how well you can see it, but that's the picture. So tabouli, as many of you will well know, tends to be sold in a little container that you can serve as dip. This is taking that concept and putting it into a meal. So we're going to start today with our quinoa. And so let me grab that for a minute. Let's see. So I buy quinoa in bulk at a wholesale store. You can buy it in the grocery store. It's just a lot more that way, and it tends to be a dry ingredient, so it's not going to actually like go bad very quickly. Another thing, so one of the purposes for me in doing this little thing that we're doing is to kind of explain why do I do what I do. So I am adding, I think this recipe calls for a cup of quinoa. I'm doubling the recipe. And the reason that I'm doubling the recipe is because I want to have extra food for tomorrow. Because in this world where I'm trying to feed my family better, I don't want to feed them sandwiches every day. Why? Because they're either going to get wow butter jelly because they can't take peanut butter to school, or they're going to get cold cuts. And both of those things tend to be not that great of a lunch. And cold cuts tend to get really expensive. More expensive, I think, than just doubling my recipe when I'm already cooking. So when I'm making quinoa, I have a special pot here. So I hit start, I hit quinoa, and I hit start again, and it's going to toast my quinoa for me, which is just a really cool deal. Not every rice cooker does that, but this one does. Also, in my cookbook, it says to make the quinoa on the stove. Also possible if you don't have a way to make it in a cooker like that. But I'm doing it that way because it's fast and easy, and so this is gonna toast for maybe a minute. I'm gonna put some water in it, and then I'm gonna move on. So while that's doing that, I'm gonna pull together my dressing. So my dressing is gonna be lemon juice, date syrup, which we're gonna talk about in a moment, and the savory spice blend. So really, you're talking about sugar, acid, and spices to go over this whole salad. I sometimes make date syrup. You take a cup of water and you soak a cup of dates for, I think, like 20 minutes. You puree it. I don't have that right now, but the idea is to get something sweet in with that acid. So I'm just going to use a lesser amount of sugar. You could also use stevia or erythritol or anything like that just to get that extra bit of sweet. And you would tailor it based on how sweet the thing is. Stevia is really sweet. You would probably use like a pinch. Anyways, I'll take like a small little container like this. I'm going to grab my lemon juice and I'll be right back. So, lemon juice is another thing I also make in bulk. Another option you have is to take actual lemon and grind it up. So I don't do that right now. I did for a while, and then I stopped because I had to freeze it and I had to keep track of it, and I just don't have the time. The other thing is I tend to keep 2 tablespoons, 2 teaspoons around, and I keep them all out, and I use one for my wet ingredients in a recipe and one for my dry. So I can always be moving quickly. Quickly is a big theme for me. So we come over here. You can see like my whole house is full of stuff, and I work around that as well. So you get to be a part of my experience. So this calls for, let me make sure I get it right, 2 tablespoons of lemon. So I like to do, if I'm doing a double batch, I tend to imagine that my family wants double the dressing. So I'm going to do 8 tablespoons, which is a lot more. But I'm making extra quinoa, and I find my family likes things wet enough, right? We don't want to just have this super dry thing. The family doesn't like that so much. I want to make the experience enjoyable for them too. So then we're talking about date syrup, and it was a tablespoon. So I'm going to swap that out to say 2 teaspoons of sugar is what we're going to do. So I'll put my lemon juice away as I go. I have sugar on the counter. That's not always true, but it is right now. So it goes in. And then as it turns out, my spice blend is something that came from this cookbook, and I just put it in an old container that I had. that over here as well. And it calls for 1.5 teaspoons. I've done like 4. So I'm going to go for 4 teaspoons of this. Actually, I'm going to go for 3 teaspoons because I find that our kids, if it's too spicy, they revolt. So I'll do a little less spice. And Mom and Dad, we can always add extra if we want to. That's kind of the magic of it all. So bring this over here. Now, the other thing about my How Not to Die cookbook is they don't use salt. It's like a big thing. It's like a priority not to use salt. What we have discovered is our family, it doesn't do so well with not having any salt. And so what I've been doing is just cutting the amount of salt I would normally use. So that in mind, maybe I would normally put a full teaspoon of salt in here. I'm just going to put it down to 1/2 teaspoon. Same idea here. Maybe I would have put 1/2 teaspoon in my quinoa. So I'm going to do 1/4 teaspoon. I'm just going to lessen the amount of salt in our lives. So we heard it beep. It's done toasting, which means that now I can go ahead and add my water. Now, rice cookers will tell you all you need to add is the amount that you put in plus 1/4 cup. So if I did 3 cups of quinoa, maybe I'm doing 3 1/4. I have found that it leaves it too dry. It's not enjoyable. So I add at least a whole extra cup of water when I do stuff like that. So I'm going to re-hit the start button. I'm going to shut the lid. That's going to do its thing. I don't have to touch it anymore. This over here, I was in the middle of making my dressing. So I'm just going to take a fork. You could also take a whisk. It doesn't matter. But I'm just blending it together a little bit. And I can even show you, right? It's got this, because the spices have some paprika and whatnot. So it's just got a little bit of color. And that's just going to sit until we're ready to use it. That's all that you got to do with that dressing. That is the easiest dressing known to man. Hallelujah. So our actual salad, it calls for 1.5 cups of chickpeas. So really that's 2 cans because I'm going to double the batch. So 1.5 cups would equal like 1 can chickpeas. So 2 cans of chickpeas, 2 tomatoes chopped. So I'm going to do 4 Roma tomatoes chopped, a ripe avocado. So I'm going to do 2 avocado, a cup of cucumber. I'm going to put in a whole cucumber. I'm not going to measure it. I don't got time for that. Then we got fresh parsley, mint, or cilantro. So we'll talk about that. And then 2 scallions, black pepper, and some torn salad. So what I'm going to do is run over to my fridge and get a bunch of ingredients and then bring it over to my workstation. So it's early in the week, which means that I have prepped my refrigerator. I've got a lot of stuff going in here. That often means that I have to move things around quite a bit in order to get what I need. I'm going to pull out a couple avocados that have been ripening for a while. What else did I need? I needed some spices. So I'm going to check on those. I'm not sure if that cilantro is going to be any good. I chopped it up last week. So if it's not good, I have some extra over here. My lettuce I'm going to wait on, and then I'm going to need a couple cans of chickpeas. So that's all. That's a bunch. Oh, I need a cucumber. So let me grab my cucumber. All right. So here's the thing about chickpeas for me. What I have discovered, and you can actually save they call it aquafaba in chickpea, and it's great for baking, and it's great for creating a mayonnaise even. There's different things that you can do with it if you're trying to cook a little leaner or vegan. So we have a son that has an egg allergy, so we have found once in a while just his egg allergy is slight. But my whole point in talking to you about this is normally I would get a colander out to drain beans, but what I found with chickpeas is they don't need that much draining. So I just do a quick in the can rinse and over, and I don't worry too much. Other beans, for whatever reason, their juice is different, and they stick in these different ways, and they can be kind of slimy in texture and just not what you want. But that just happens to not be true in this particular case, so I don't worry about it. So I have a workstation over here. I'm going to take all my things and put them over here. Hello. So when I'm making a salad like this, I'm probably just going to get a nice big bowl. That's going to be how I handle it. So it does not matter what kind of a bowl. I'm going to choose this one because it has a lid. It's nice and big. Eventually, my quinoa is going to go in with all the stuff that we're chopping up. And then after that, I'm not entirely concerned about in what order I do things. So, I'm taking the wrapping off of this cucumber, and it's probably a good practice at that point to go ahead and give your cucumber a quick rinse. If you want, you could even do a veggie wash. It's totally up to you as to what your comfort levels allow for you to do. And I am not the boss of you. So do what you feel you need to do. That's the bottom line there. And you'll see, like, when I do a cucumber, so I've cut it in half, and I cut it in half lengthwise again. So now I can do basically fourths of a disc, and I can just go right down the line very quickly over this cucumber. And I find that because, again, we have little kids, that gives a slightly smaller bite, which is good for them. And I don't mind it either. But if you were a grown-up and you were going to cook to the recipe and just do 1 cup of cucumber and the whole bit, maybe you want to do discs or oblong discs. But I take my little cucumber and I cut it in half. I set it the flat end down. I cut it in half again. And I do that to both. And then I line them up next to each other so that I can just go rock, rock, rock. The tip of my knife stays on the board as I go down. And sometimes the cucumber's gonna fly around and I'm gonna cut another piece twice. I don't care. It's not a big deal. For some people, that presentation is a big deal, and if that is you, I respect it. Go for it. As they say, you do you. So my tomatoes, again, I just went shopping in bulk, so I've got a lot of tomato right now. So I can take the green part away, put it with my trash, put what I don't need aside, right? And so when I'm going to cut this, cut it in half is what I do first. Again, I'm going to lay it side down, and I cut it in thirds today. And then I turn it sideways again, and then I cut so that each one is maybe like a 1/4 inch. And then boom, it just goes right in. So cut it in thirds, and then turn it sideways. I maybe do 4 cuts. Now, tomatoes are an interesting thing. I have an interesting relationship with tomato. I did not like tomato when I was a kid. I didn't like what they call the guts. And so I spent a lot of time taking guts out of my food. As it turns out, I learned not so long ago that in Italy, they also take the guts out because they don't want that to be a part. So if you want, you could go ahead and scoop out what I call the guts. Some people think that the seeds are bitter anyways, and so do what feels comfortable to you. If you don't mind the guts, they will add a little bit of extra water, but also the wetness of a tomato is going to deteriorate your salad faster. So, you know, do a little bit of each. Do whatever. It's up to you. At the end of the day, the goal is to eat and to enjoy your eating. And so if getting rid of the guts helps you to get that burst of color, because tomato actually is really good for you. The lycopene in it is a great fighter against cancer agents. And we want to do everything that we can anyways to just put a variety of nutrients in our body. So here we are. I'm finishing up this last tomato. If you were making only a single batch, you would have been done 2 tomatoes ago. But alas, this is how I'm doing things so that we have lunch tomorrow. And we're not always taking just a sandwich. And we're not staring going, I don't know what I would do for lunch, so I'll have a bag of chips, right? Because, oh my gosh, I would totally have a bag of chips for lunch. I would not hesitate to have a bag of chips for lunch. I love chips. I love salty things. I should warn you, I've had these avocado for a couple weeks, so I don't know what they're going to be like. But this one looks okay. So when I've got an avocado and I've cut it in half, I'm going first to kind of make these slits the long way. This one's super ripe. It's just going to fall apart. And then I go the short way so that really I'm dicing it inside of the peel. So I've done that on one. Now I'm going to do it for the other. There's a little like stem. I tend to take that out early. And now I've crossed the other way. And then what I do is just grab a spoon. And I just scoop out the inside and toss it in with everything else. Actually, because I'm making this in the middle of the morning and we're going to eat dinner later tonight, I'm also going to put a little bit of lemon juice on there right away, but not quite yet. So I'll get my second avocado, and again, these I'm playing with fate a little bit because these have been in there probably 3 weeks, but they came to me not at all right. So this one's also good. We're in good shape. Yay! I think one of the most disappointing things too is you open up an avocado and find it's like so hard you really can't work with it. So, you know, it's one problem or the other sometimes. But so I've cut long way, I've cut the short way. If you're working with a really sharp knife, keep in mind that could actually go through the peel. So you have to learn a little bit about pressure and how far to go with your pressure. So in that goes, and again, because I'm working with avocado that can oxidate and turn brown really quickly, I'm going to actually throw in my dressing now. It won't hurt anything for this stuff to basically marinate in the dressing. So I'm going to give what I've got so far a little toss so that those avocado get that lime juice on them right away. And then for some reason I was working with avocado. I'm going to also switch to a larger spoon because I'm working with a bigger amount of ingredients. Larger spoon is going to help me work through that. I'm also going to go ahead and add my chickpeas right in. This is such a fun salad. We're like basically almost done. We've got only a couple more things to add before we would just tear up some lettuce and wait for our quinoa to cool so we can put it in. So all of this goes in, and I can just show you how beautiful. See that fleck of red and green? It's just such a beautiful salad. So I'm gonna grab some stuff that I cut up last week and take a look. And it's been a busy weekend. I don't know what this stuff is gonna look like. But so this is some scallion that I cut up last week. And it looks like it's totally usable. So it called for two scallions. Again, I'm basically gonna take a handful and call one handful a scallion. And if it called for 2, then I needed basically all of this. So I'm just gonna, we needed to use those up anyways. I love scallion. So there, it's in. Then the cilantro, so cilantro, mint, or parsley. This is your call, but what I have learned is don't mix them. There's no point. So in looking at this cilantro, I don't know if you can see, it's too old. I can't use this. So what I should have done is been aware of that at some point in the weekend and gone ahead and froze it up. But I didn't, and now it's basically like a black goo, which nobody's gonna want to eat. That's not tasty at all. So this is going to, if you have composting, this would be great for your composting. I sadly don't, and I don't have anyone to give my composting to. But let me go ahead and rinse that yuckiness out, because that's pretty gross. And then let me go and grab, I'll show you what I have instead. And I'll tell you why I have it as well. So I'll also pull out my lettuce while I'm at it. So what I have instead is a cilantro stir-in paste. This is not how I normally buy my cilantro, but I was at the store over the weekend and they were all out of cilantro because more and more people have started to cook with fresh herbs. So I didn't have time to go to yet another store. So this is my secondary, like my backup experience. And it says that I need a ½ cup of fresh mint, parsley, or cilantro. So they actually tell you on the back, 1 tablespoon of paste replaces 1 tablespoon of fresh cilantro, which means you need a lot of this stuff to equal, what was it again? I already forgot. A ½ cup. I mean, a ½ cup, my gosh. So I'm going to go ahead and squeeze all that out. And then, it probably would have been the equivalent of a whole tube, but that one was half full. So keep in mind, if you were making this into that tabouli salad that you dip your crackers in, just think of how much greenery is in there. That's why there's so much. Now, another option that you would have if you just don't have the time to get the fresh herbs going or whatever is to buy the dried. They have dried cilantro, mint, and parsley. And my family happens to really like cilantro. Mint is a really beautiful, refreshing flavor too. I actually am not the biggest fan of fresh parsley. I like it in small doses. I like it in soup, that kind of a thing. So I have stirred in. That actually kind of makes it a lot faster. And then I've got a lot of trash. So I'm going to dispose of my trash so that I can cut up my lettuce. So if you follow me over here, I have a recycling set up right next to my trash, and then I've got a trash. So I just took my cutting board over and boom, bada bang, it's over. I want to get some of those tomato guts off before I start in on my lettuce. And then here is the thing about my lettuce. I prepped it ahead of time because I'm busy. So I bought these reusable bags at the grocery store. It turns out they're amazing. I love them. They're so much faster than the plastic. So I find also when I'm wrapping things in this paper towel like this, it keeps it fresher longer so that it's like the right balance of moisture. And then I don't just throw it out. I save that to use again. So we're working to reduce our footprint. There are things that you like to do to make food taste good, and if you can't buy all your food fresh on that one day, how are you going to work with it? This is my workaround. This is how I do it. You do, again, if you have the ability to go to the market or that fits your lifestyle, do it. Do whatever you can. That's the name of the game. But I'm going to need another bowl. My quinoa is still cooking. The bulk of the rest of that salad is done. Because if I just go through the list, chickpeas, tomatoes, avocado, cucumber, spices, cilantro, and then a little black pepper we can add in. So black pepper, before I talk about that, I'm going to use this plastic knife to cut up my lettuce. It is supposed to keep lettuce from turning brown. Somebody gave it to me as a gift. I didn't go buy this. So if you don't have one, by all means, use your hands, use a metal one. It doesn't matter. I think sometimes people can really get caught up in like, I can't cook because I don't have the tools or whatever. The tools come little by little over time and they disappear and you rebuy and the whole bit, so much changes. But when I cut up a head of lettuce, I first cut around the whole circumference. Big discs almost. And then today, the ends of my lettuce are okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep those as part of the salad. Lettuce heads, sometimes they're really thin and skinny depending on the season and when they picked them. And when that's the case, I might just take that same knife and cut the long way. But today, this one's a pretty thick head of lettuce, which makes me happy, again, because I have a big family. I can buy one head of lettuce instead of so many. So today I'm going to rip after I've cut those discs for a little bit here. Just again to make sure I've got good bite-sized pieces. If you have young children and you are trying to feed them and you give them a piece of lettuce the size of their head, I can tell you, my kids don't know what to do with that. They won't eat it. But in general, lettuce ought to be a pretty accessible thing to serve to your family. Most of the, like this is a romaine. Romaine is a super mild flavor. It's not as healthy as say an arugula or something like that, but it's a leafy green. It gets our kids used to it. It's gonna have that nice crispy crunch. It's kind of a cool salad, so I'm making this in October when having a cool salad could work. It depends on the day because we live in a northern climate. I tend to struggle in the fall to know should I be cooking cool or warm, and I make my menus a month in advance, so there is no way I have any idea if a Tuesday is going to be hot or cold when I make that menu. So sometimes in the fall we have soup when it's like surprisingly 80, and we have salad when it's surprisingly 50, and some days it matches perfect. So those days we just go, yay, life works perfectly. So as I cut it, I kind of stir it around because the light and the dark have different flavor too. And we want everybody to get a nice blend of everything. Not like, oh, I got all the white stem, or, oh, I got all the green and no crunch. So again, and I had prepped these ahead of time. I had washed them and put them in the paper towel. So I'm cutting my discs. And I've been with you at this moment 25 minutes, and we are almost done. So I'm finishing tearing up my lettuce. When that quinoa is done, I'm gonna open the lid, let it cool for a while. I'm gonna stir it in, and then everything's gonna go in the fridge so that when it's time for dinner, I'm gonna put a bed of lettuce down on a plate or in a bowl, depending on the kid and how much they eat. And then I'm gonna put that quinoa salad on top, and everyone's gonna be able to eat in like 2 minutes, right? Like everybody can get their food within 2 minutes, which is great. I spend 30 minutes at a time in the day that's convenient for me. I don't have to prep dinner. People can eat at different times if they've got, you know, like I have one that's gonna go to dance, and so we may eat after everyone else eats when we get home. Sometimes though, dance goes too late, and so we need to eat before everyone eats. So this gives me a really flexible schedule, and then come morning when I'm making lunches, I'm gonna get out nice containers, I'm gonna lay that bed of lettuce down, and I'm gonna put that quinoa salad over it, and they're gonna go to work and to school with these really flavorful, healthy meals. And you can play with this. Like I have a friend I made this for, and like 4 days later, she put blueberries in it. She enhanced it with something else. So, you know, you can make it one time and make it with the mint, and make it another time and make it with the cilantro, and it's gonna have a different feel every time. Chickpeas are a mild flavor, but you could try other types of beans, other white beans. I tend to like northern beans or the small white bean. Cannellini I mostly only use for like soup because it's a bigger bean with a thick skin, which is not very kid friendly. So this will be more trash, but that is basically it. I have this huge bowl of lettuce, which will probably serve beyond dinner and tomorrow's lunch. And then once the quinoa is ready, it's gonna go in this huge bowl, and I've got a meal that's gonna last. It's gonna be healthy, it's gonna be tasty, and it really happened in under 30 minutes, because even though this is cooking, I'm not dealing with it. So that is the salad. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.